from Texas, and now recognize Mr. Buddy Carter from the great state of Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Young, thank you for being here. Appreciate it very much. This is actually the third time that I've had the opportunity to ask you questions since I've been on the Budget Committee, and I'm sure you don't remember, but the first two times I made it clear that I don't agree with the President on his priorities on spending. I understand it, but I certainly, we have our differences on that. But I think that we do agree that we should be protecting Americans and protecting our citizens. And number one responsibility of the federal government is to protect our homeland and protect our citizens. And that's why I'm so concerned about what's going on down at the border, the southern border, the southwest border. You see, I'm a pharmacist, a healthcare professional, and every day we're losing upwards to 300 people every day as a result of drug overdose, much of it fentanyl poisoning, not overdose, poisoning, not addiction. And it concerns me, and listen, I can rattle off the figures with you, and 1.9 billion people, that's enough to kill, and fentanyl in our country, enough to kill 1.9 billion people. It's gotten so bad, if you'll look here, Ms. Young, I actually carry naloxone in my backpack. This will reverse the effects if used quickly enough of fentanyl. And I actually carry it in my backpack everywhere I go. And I believe there are two things that we have to do in order to address this problem with the fentanyl poison in our country. One is that you got to stop the supply. And most of it's coming from the southern border. And secondly, I want to make sure that we have access to this. There's enough over here now that we've got to make this available without a prescription. We got to remove the barriers. This ought to be like syrup of Ipecac anymore. It ought to be in every medicine cabinet, every emergency box. It ought to be in where you see a defibrillator, you ought to see that. That's how bad that problem is now. That's why it baffles me that this budget seeks to spend 3 times as much money on zero-emission vehicles than combating the fentanyl crisis. Can you tell me how this budget addresses the fentanyl crisis in any serious way?
Sure, Congressman, you've heard me rebut the cut narrative on DHS, and I'll continue to point out that DHS grows by over 9%. But specifically on the border with fentanyl, I think we have some common agreement here. I've been to the border. I've seen them pop off the sides of cars and drugs packed to the hilt. The cartels know that our land ports of entry, because that is where most of the drugs come through, don't have the technology in place to track. So they're willing to drive things through, lose some of their goods because they know they can get enough through. What are we doing to get that equipment?
That's what I'm asking, and I appreciate the fact that and I hope you're communicating that to the administration.
And that's why we have money to continue, and thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, we had land ports of entry money. This would add more of that NII equipment to make sure we are scanning more cars that come through the border.
If you will, Ms. Young, I've been to the border 7 times since I've been a member of Congress. And the last time I was there, we were told that only 5 to 10% of the fentanyl that's coming in over that border is coming through ports of entry. Now, granted, we may be capturing 97% of that at the port of entry, but that's 97% of only 10% of the total fentanyl. So what are we doing to secure the border, to stop fentanyl coming across that border, to stop killing our citizens? What does this budget do to address that?
Well, one, I'm happy to talk offline about your analysis. Mine is that most fentanyl is coming through the land ports of entry, so technology will help. What we also need to do is make sure we are supporting the men and women down at the border. This budget funds CBP to hire 350 more Border Patrol agents. We have a border surge plan that I've not heard much interest in taking up, but we think it's novel. As migration flow changes, we are asking that depending on how many migrants are coming across, more money is released to help us deal with what will most likely be an increase.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm failing to see how we're addressing this, because we are allowing American citizens to be killed as a result of fentanyl poison. If we were to lose 300 people in a plane crash, we'd stop every plane from flying right now. until we got it fixed. Yet we lose 300 people every day to fentanyl poisoning, and we don't do anything about it at the border.
We agree with you, Mr. Carter. That's why we have money here to help stop the crossing of fentanyl and to go after these cartels. We agree with you.
I don't see it in the budget, though.
After this, we can go through it, and I'll show you.
I will be glad to, because I need to know that this administration is serious about this.
I've worked on these issues a long time, and I'm happy to work with you.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank